Monster Hunter Wilds Ascendance was revealed during today's Summer Game Fest. We got a new trailer and we have a website. We're going to be going over all of the information, but for starters, let's go ahead and play the trailer and I'll watch it alongside you guys.
Wyveria negated the weight of buildings and mounted the sky.
I can't stop wondering, how can all this exist up amongst the clouds?
They can affect the environment with just their presence. A moving natural disaster.
Too powerful to tame, too difficult to reproduce. Sounds like an elder dragon.
(2027). Massive expansion. Requires Monster Hunter Wilds base game. So this is going to be releasing simultaneously on all platforms. It's going to be releasing in 2027. My prediction is that we're likely looking at a March release date. That would be kind of like what I would expect, in line with the usual Q1 shenanigans. Unless they feel like they need more time, at which point things might slide a little bit further ahead. People are saying during my stream they don't say early 2027, so there's a chance that this might be a little bit later in the year, which is also a possibility. One of the things that we know for certain is that Capcom is going to want to make sure that the game does not suffer from the same performance issues that we had during Monster Hunter Wilds. At least that would be what I would expect. Now, we're going to be watching through the trailer again, and I'm going to be giving guys my analysis of what I've seen so far in this trailer. So let's go ahead from the beginning, and now with a whole lot of pausing, right? So first shot right here, what we see is essentially you can see the tendrils of the Dragon Torch. So if you've played the story of Monster Hunter Wilds, you know that this is like the stuff that connects all of the different areas of the Forbidden Lands, and that, you know, the energy of the Dragon Torch is like what influences inclemency and all of those changes and all of that shenanigans. And apparently all those tendrils are extending upwards into these islands in the sky. So it's kind of like an interesting thing due to what they say a little bit later in this trailer, because they talk about how Wyveria negated the weight of buildings and took to the sky. So you would imagine that they're using the energy of the Dragon Torch for some type of gravity manipulation, maybe? Not 100% sure, but yeah, let's go ahead and carry on. Sorry about the little notification. I'm downloading a couple of things from Steam because there were a lot of announcements during Summer Game Fest. Also, be sure to subscribe to the channel if you want to stay up to date on all those announcements and naturally more Monster Hunter content, because there's a lot of stuff to speculate on now that we have an actual trailer. But yeah. So we carry on, and one of the first things that you actually see is you see our hunter kind of like jumping up. You see this draft thing going on. And I actually thought it was interesting the color that they chose for the sacred, because if you look, our hunter is riding a blue sacred. And if you look at the colors in this blue sacred, it's got a little bit of blue, a little bit of white. If you guys played Monster Hunter World, you guys will remember those sections in the Coral Highlands where after we unlock the updrafts and all of that stuff, if you have the Airborne Mantle, you can use the Airborne Mantle to basically ride those updrafts and kind of take shortcuts in the Coral Highlands area. That's kind of like the image that this particular section reminds me of, because you're not actively controlling the sacred. You're basically riding an updraft all the way to these to this kind of like island structure up in the sky. And you see the hunter doing that immediately after that section again. So one of the things that I wanted to bring up is, like, if you guys remember when I first did my live stream of Monster Hunter Wilds, one of the things that kind of annoyed me a little bit was the sacred only routes, and that is one of the things that we're going to be having, like, for sure. Like the route that you guys just saw our hunter go through, this is 100% a sacred only route. One of the things that frustrates me a little bit about that is because you can't manually control sacred on a sacred only route. I mean, you can try, but you're probably going to end up falling off the sacred only route. So I'm hoping that these are somewhat limited to kind of like navigate between the islands and then let me manually drive the sacred. This is just personal preference here. But yeah, once again, riding another updraft all the way to the top of the island. You can see kind of like a new... It's not really a new type of biome. It looks like the Scarlet Forest near the ruins. You know, the area where you drop the big boulders on top of whatever amphibian creature ends up in there. Sometimes like Yakris, other times Mizutsune, other times Uthuna. You always end up dropping the big rocks on top of them. Like, you know, it's got the ruined buildings of Wyveria and all of that stuff. Also reminds me a little bit of whatchamacallit, Coral Highlands, but it's weird because it's got a lot of like dry herbs and stuff. So in here we get our first shot of what Alma looks like in the expansion. Everybody's gotten a little bit of a makeover. So Alma's just wearing very baggy clothes, and chat just went into degeneracy mode with Gaijin Hunter leading the charge. That's what happened during the live stream. People were saying that clearly Alma is pregnant. And then they started arguing about whether or not she would lay an egg. Alma is not pregnant. She is just wearing baggy clothes, okay? Everybody chill. See, Wyveria negated the weight of buildings and mounted the sky. So that's the whole thing about, you know, that's where my theory comes, that like they were using the power of the dragon torch to kind of like, you know, funnel all of that into some type of friggin' anti-gravity shenanigans. That's how we got these sky islands. Also, that right there is Gemma. You can recognize from the jacket. She's got a new haircut, and you can see a little Kezu plushie. Very much, if you guys remember, in the beginnings of Wilds, she had the Kutku plushie, and then later on, I forget exactly when Kutkus were revealed, but Kutkus were added into the game. So the fact that she has a Kezu plushie this time around, most likely we're getting Kezu, which is cool because Kezu has a banger soundtrack. So look that up on YouTube if you guys are new to Monster Hunter. Just actually listen to the theme song of Kezu. It's friggin' awesome. But anyway, let's continue here. You guys can see the new haircut on Gemma. New haircut on Olivia as well. Oh, hell, even Alma has like a braided ponytail, which is pretty cool. Yeah, you can see more Dragon Torch shenanigans, DNA strands kind of like linking up. You see a lot of ruins and stuff from Wyveria. You see a couple of things that remind me a little bit of Downy Crakes, but this is actually a new species. Initially, when I first saw this, because I saw this from the Twitter video, because Twitter feed was the only feed that was stable during the Summer Game Fest, impressively enough. But yeah, in the Twitter feed, these almost look like Downy Crakes, but now that I'm looking at them properly, no, this is clearly like a new species of endemic life that you guys are going to want to catch. And if Capcom sees my previous video where I talk about all the things you guys want for the expansion, you will have a room where you can display your endemic life. As to whether or not that's going to happen, we'll have to wait and see, but, you know, they should be aware that that is definitely something that the community wants. How can all this exist amongst the clouds? Yeah, how is it still floating? Because technically speaking, didn't we destroy the Dragon Torch? So I keep calling it the Dragon Torch. Is that the actual name? Whatever. You guys know the infinite energy source that we go when we go and fight Zoshia next to and all of that. We see the Hunter here jumping down. Looks like we're going to be getting a new Hope set. The new Hope set looks really cool too. Nice little boob window as well. And in here we get a new monster. This is like one of the first new monsters that we get to see. This is some Kurupeku inspired herd animal, herd monster even, which as you can see you have the one that's blue. This one is the alpha. And if you guys remember, Kurupeku has like the thing in his chest. These guys have that, but in their wings. I wonder if these guys also call out other monsters or if they just use it to communicate amongst themselves. I do like their little herd attack that they do here. In formation, it just like reminds you of those jets that they do in the US for show. I forget what the actual name is, but like, yeah, the jets, and they do acrobatics and stuff for people to watch. Okay, Alpha Team, information, Alpha Strike. Lots of blunt damage. And then we get the thing that is going to enable us to do new moves this expansion, which is called the Boost Bracer. We're going to be looking at this in a little bit more detail on the website in a couple of seconds here. But like, yeah, this is the Boost Bracer. This is going to be like the new tool that you're going to have, kind of like the way you had the Clutch Claw in Iceborne. This is this game's version of the Clutch Claw, which is going to enable you to have different move sets on your weapon. So this is going to be interesting. I'm very curious to see how they're going to implement this alongside focus mode, because I'm curious as to which buttons you're going to have to press in order to activate boost mode, focus mode, especially if you're playing something like the Insect Glaive. So you have all of the shenanigans that you have to keep track of with the Insect Glaive and holding down this, but I think they've actually improved the Insect Glaive since then. I think Insect Glaive players are actually pretty happy now, but you know, you have all the shenanigans to keep track of, and then on top of it, it's like, oh, are we in focus mode? Okay, now turn on boost mode. This is going to be insane, but it looks really fun. By the way, this is clearly inspired by Nero's hand, Nero's robotic hand from Devil May Cry. I was going to say Devil May Cry 5, but technically speaking, doesn't Nero lose his hand Devil May Cry 4? Or is it a devil hand back then? I don't know. I'm not too in-depth when it comes to the lore of Devil May Cry, but I do know that in Devil May Cry 5, Nero has the cool robot arm that also kind of revs up like what he's about to do right here. Zoom. So basically that is triggering boost mode, which in a way it almost feels like it's a demon mode except for all the weapons, because if you pay attention to the greatsword after he activates the boost bracer, look at how fast it's going. Slap. Slap. No charge attacks whatsoever except here. Boom. That almost looked like Rage Slash a little bit, maybe. And then in here we have a new move. So these are all new moves, by the way. It's like everything that you saw with the greatsword right there, that is not something that you can do in Monster Hunter Wilds right now. And then immediately afterwards, you see the light bowgun also doing a boost mode where it's kind of doing like a strafing run. It's one-handed light bowgun shooting. Let me just say that again. One-handed light bowgun shooting whilst running to the side. That's crazy. And then it does like a little boosty thing at the end. Kind of does like a dodge before it actually holds the light bowgun with both hands again. That's pretty crazy. And then we see my personal favorite, the gun lance, doing kind of like a cross slash type counter, which is weird because usually you see the cross slash type counter on the lance most of the time, I want to say. So seeing it on the gun lance was a little bit weird, but yeah, that's kind of like the counter that we get. So basically it's in boost mode, and then it does a perfect guard, and then it counters with like the cross slash. Just cool, I guess. I wanted to see something with more explosions, but you know, I'll take the cross slash. Also look at the environment that we have here. This is the stuff that I was talking about that in the ways reminds me a little bit of the Coral Highlands, but at the same time, there's too much like dry grass. I need to go back into World and see, because I think there's also a lot of dry grass in the Coral Highlands, but clearly the stuff that's going on here is just Wyveria shenanigans, because you see all the Wyveria roots and all of that stuff and the ruins of Wyveria and yada yada. They can affect the environment with just their presence, a moving natural disaster. Obviously in here they're talking about elder dragons. You see a bunch of guardian doshagumas raining from the sky, which is pretty crazy. You see, I'm so terrible with names. I forget her name. I'm ashamed to admit. Somebody hit me, but yeah, you know who she is. She shows up during Gogmazios, and obviously she's one of the ace hunters for Ultimate. It's just for whatever reason, brain no work. It's also 1 a.m. Okay, can I get some slack, please? Thank you. Too powerful to tame, too difficult to reproduce. Who the hell was trying to tame an elder dragon is another question. Also, were there monsters? Oh yeah, there were. It's the doshagumas that were falling alongside us. No wait, those are doshagumas leaving. The guardian doshagumas running away. But yeah, apparently somebody was trying to tame. And here's an interesting thing. If you listen to this dialogue, this actually reminded me a little bit of Witcher, which the team has been somewhat influenced by The Witcher 3. They did do the collab all the way back in Monster Hunter World. But the way that our character sounds, it's kind of like he's analyzing the monster the same way that a Witcher would analyze. Too powerful to tame, too difficult to reproduce. You know? But it's a Kushala Daora. Fantastic. Here we go. Tornadoes inbound. Bring on the heavy bow guns with, whatchamacallit, forget the name. Me and names. What is it with my brain and specific names? I know exactly the explosive rounds that stun. Explosive rounds that stun. Why can't I remember the name of them? It's so frustrating knowing the thing that you're referring to, being unable to name it. Frustrating. But yeah, Kushala Daora. Sounds like an elder dragon. Boom. And then you see the shot of like the islands in the sky, which is where we're going to be going. Title shot, Monster Hunter Wilds Ascendance, because we're going to ascend into these islands in order to fight new monsters, figure out what's going on in the Forbidden Lands, because probably all of this is having influence in the Forbidden Lands below, and so we have to come up here and investigate by killing a bunch of creatures, making some funny hats and some new weapons, and, you know, doing the usual shenanigans that we tend to do. It's an interesting title, Ascendance. And then it's your boy Lao Shanlong. So we also had a lot of people in my post that I did on the community tab. They were talking about how they wanted siege hunts. There you go. Siege hunt. Wanted siege hunts. We're getting Lao Shanlong. I'm actually really curious to see the new version of Lao Shanlong, see how they actually, you know, bring it up to snuff to modern Monster Hunter, because it's such a classical monster in Monster Hunter's roster. I think it's going to be really cool to just like face up against it in a modern Monster Hunter game. Yeah, it's just a little bit of a teaser. And then the date reveal 2027. Now we do have a website, but the website doesn't have a whole lot of information. Now Capcom is calling this a massive expansion. I'm not sure. I'm guessing that's to clarify, because there's probably going to be a lot of new players that are not going to necessarily know exactly what a master rank expansion entails. I'm not exactly sure if we should be expecting more content than normal for a master rank expansion. I would expect the same amount of content we usually get. So like a new zone, which in this case is obviously the floating islands, which that's quite a fresh zone. I don't think we've had like floating islands as a thing before. The thing that instantly came to mind when I thought about that was like the ruined pinnacle, but obviously that's a different thing. But yeah, there's that, and there's also going to be stuff that's going to be added into the Eastern lands, because that's something that they mentioned on the website. We have a new logo, a bunch of wyverns in here. I'm sure that somebody's going to break down this logo real well. It's a little bit too late for me to break down this logo properly, not to mention that I'm not exceptional when it comes to Monster Hunter iconography, so I'll probably just let better minds than mine figure that part out. But it looks really good. I like the colors of red and blue. I think they look really nice. The whole concept of Ascendance, pretty cool. I'm excited. Then we have the website here, like I had mentioned, massive expansion coming 2027. A copy of Monster Hunter Wilds is required to play. I've had the question as to whether or not, and I'm sorry, that was my Steam again. I've had the question as to whether or not there's a lot of grind that you got to do. And I'm pretty sure that to just get ready for Monster Hunter Wilds Ascendance, you don't need to grind that much. Because a lot of the grind that a lot of us did was doing stuff like Savage Omega and Gogmardian weapons, which I don't really think you're going to need. You don't really need to grind Gogmardian weapons to get into the expansion, because that would be kind of dumb if they forced players to grind that stuff. So if you've been away from Monster Hunter Wilds, it's a pretty good time to make a return. Check it out, see if hopefully the performance is better for you. There's a lot of new challenges. We have 9.5 difficulties, 10.5 difficulties, which is really increases the challenges. They're also doing the events, in case you missed out on the timed events where you could get the special pendants and stuff. They're doing all that stuff now as well. So we already saw the announcement trailer, and we have introduction. Continuing from the story set up in Monster Hunter Wilds, Ascendance expands the world and gameplay with new areas and monsters, new hunter actions, and the introduction of master rank quests. Monsters. New monsters await you in the Eastlands. We have the new Kurupeku-like dude. They also show Kushala Daora, and they show Lao Shan Lung. New threats arise with the emergence of elder dragons. Their presence alone is enough to bring about catastrophic destruction. I actually don't think that Lao Shan Lung is in the islands. I think that Lao Shan Lung is going to be in the ground, because I kind of feel like that makes sense. I don't know if it makes a whole lot of sense, Lao Shan Lung on a bunch of floating islands, but we'll see what they end up doing. Either way, looks pretty cool. Then we have, with the addition of the Boost Bracer, your arsenal expands with devastating new attacks, unleash the hunter within. So in a way, while it's not exactly switch skills, which is what a lot of us wanted, I know it's definitely something that I wanted, we're basically still getting new moves for the weapons, as we always do, this time in the form of the Boost Bracer. I'm very curious to see how this mechanic is going to work. Obviously, right now, from the footage that they've shown us, it just looks like, okay, it's a boost mode. You trigger it kind of like a demon mode from the Dual Blades. If you ever played Dual Blades, you kind of get the idea of what a boost mode would look like, and it changes the moveset of your weapon. I'm assuming there's going to be some type of a limit. You can't just like be in boost mode the whole time. And so deciding when to use that is going to be a key part of the skill expression in Monster Hunter Wilds Ascendance, but it seems like right now that is most of the information that we have. But once again, it is late, so I might have missed a couple of things here and there. If I did, make sure to leave that in the comment section down below. I'm going to be following this up naturally with more videos and stuff, but for now, I'm going to go and get some sleep. Love you guys. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like button, subscribe, bell notification icon for more Monster Hunter content, as well as we're currently playing through Path of Exile, the new league. That's kind of like our streams for the foreseeable future throughout this month. So hopefully you guys enjoy the content, and I'll see you guys later. Stay strong, stay safe. Peace out, team.